Merry me, Annie here. Welcome back to Tarot Together. Finally, after a long hiatus, life just took me another direction for a while. I'm back to doing Tarot Together videos. I'm back personally to re-immersing myself in my studies. We have now arrived at the High Priestess card after all this time. We're on the third card, aren't we? Or the second card, however you look at it. This video begins the series on the symbolism of that card. Remember that when it comes to symbolism, we collect information. We collect information from books, discussion groups, YouTube videos, all kinds of sources that go into the meanings of the cards, as others have seen it, the symbolism of the cards. Some of those symbols are very historically accurate and specific. Whether we see them that way or not, they were intended that way by their creators. Whether it's a traditional or a contemporary tarot card, one thing all the decks share is that nothing's put on a card by accident. There's a meaning behind everything that's there. But the lessons when it comes to the symbols on the card, in the end, are not so much about what they were intended by their creators, but what they come to mean for us, if we study the tarot, as I do. We're curious about the source of the symbolism on the cards. The source of the symbolism on the cards often is the only explanation for the attributes that are traditionally given a card. Again, we decide how many of those traditional attributes we're going to hold as our own in relation to the card. I want to begin the symbolism series for the High Priestess card with something that was part of an interesting conversation I had recently. It's about the symbolism of this. That is the back of the cards I most commonly use. The discussion was about what we do to center and to calm and get ourselves to our tarot place before we do a reading. And my friend mentioned to me that he uses the back of his cards. That is his trigger to the here and now that I'm going to my tarot place. So I tried that. It's actually not something I've ever done. I have a little process. I go through a meditation and candle and incense and just get myself into my peaceful place. And so I tried his technique. Putting a card in candlelight, where all I saw was the back of it, and just letting myself go into the back of the card. Danged if it didn't work for me. So I wanted to mention that as I start this series on the symbolism of the High Priestess card. As a possibility. I've not mentioned that when it comes to symbols, the back of your card as a symbol. It's actually become a nice learning for me. When I see the back of my cards now, I go to a certain place. Maybe it will be so for you, so I wanted to mention it. But let's remember, some of us never do the kind of studying that gives them an historical or the artistic explanation for the symbols on their cards. They just like to get themselves lost in their cards and come where they need to themselves. That's a perfectly fine way to study tarot. But the series on the High Priestess now, the next several videos on her symbols, will be a curiosity for those of you who want to know the historical sources of the symbols on the Rider-Waite cards for the High Priestess. Maybe it's something interesting or a curiosity. For others, it's going to be the way you're going to deepen your understanding to the meaning of a card. But before we do the High Priestess, think for a moment of the Magician, the image of him in your mind. What are the most powerful things that you recall of the card without actually having the card in front of you that trigger you to have a relationship with that card? Is it his body language, that stance, that as above, so below stance that he takes so confidently? Is it the mystery of what is on the table in front of him? Is it the arbor, the flowers around him? How about the vivid yellow of the sky What is the tattoo in your brain for the Magician? Think about the Fool for a moment. What do you remember of the Fool card if you don't have it in front of you? The mountains? His attitude? The appearance he's about to step off and into, or outward or upwards? What about the dog behind him? What about that bright white spiritual sun behind him? What do you remember of those two cards? What we remember after the fact. What is proven by either our research or our studies or the experience of using the cards, or what caught our fancy the most about the energy on any card is what matters the most in the end. So, let's look now at the High Priestess card. Of course, you know this series is all about the Rider-Waite. Here she is. Check out her environment. Where is she? It's always intriguing with this card to consider, is she inside or outside? Because there's columns around her, but they don't seem to be connected to a roof. What's she surrounded by? What's behind the curtain? On first glance, we think it's all about the curtain. But can you see? What's behind the curtain? It's actually very clear and present on the cards. What about her colors? Check this out. She, primarily blue. Compare that to the colors on the Magician card. What about her body language? The Magician certainly seemed either to be in action or frozen right before he was about to do something. What about the High Priestess? Action? Inaction? What does her facial expression lend to that? How about movement in the card? We look for movement in all of the cards. Movement or lack of movement. At first glance we think, well, there doesn't appear to be movement. But what about the movement of the water on the lake or the ocean behind the curtain? Or look at the hem of her gown. She's sitting there so peacefully, and yet the hem of her gown is turning into water and literally flowing away from her. Check out her clothing. Notice she's completely clothed. We see her face, and we see her left hand only. How about the number 2? It's the second numbered card in the deck. The possibilities of what 2 means. What makes it different than 1 or 0? What else do you note in the card? Do you notice anything if you shift focus? It was a good trick that I was taught. Checking the card out from left to right, and from right to left, or from the bottom to the top, or the top to the bottom. Does anything look different when you look at it from a different perspective? What if you really used your imagination to shift your perspective and you walked around her and you saw her from all angles as you walked around her? And I'll leave you with one more thing regarding consideration of the High Priestess card symbols before we move on to, well, what I have noted for myself from historical sources and readings about the meaning of the symbols on her card. What about the fact that it is her card? She is the first female we have encountered in our journey through the tarot. Is there? Could there be? Or does it matter? Regarding significance of our encounter with the first female. You might want to spend some more time with the card if you're new to tarot, jotting down all the different things you see in the card. Make a list of them. And then, as I go over what my notes are on each one of them, see if that fills in or informs any of that symbolic meaning to you. Also will encourage you to go off and search out more information. As with all my videos, I have to say, especially with the ones on the symbols and the tarot card, I welcome your thoughts. What you've experienced or what you've read that matches or does not match what I share with you. I'm just a seeker in tarot. I don't profess to be an expert. I'm a collector of information, and I'm a lover of the cards, and I'm fascinated with the wisdom that they bring me. It doesn't make me an expert. It means every day I'm still discovering something new that someone points out to me or my experiences with the card bring to me. I'd love your feedback here, or thankfully, since it's been rescued, and you know, if you watched the short video I did on the Tarot Together Facebook group, I'd love your comments there too. Here also, so that those who watch my videos get a chance to appreciate your wisdom and your input. The symbolism on the High Priestess card. How lost can you get in that? Mary Part.